especially downtown. Like it's thick. It's just thick.
It'd be thick up here right now. It's hard to breathe outside.
Yeah. Yeah. You walk outside and you're like, it's just everywhere. But you don't do that too quickly because the moment you do, you just start to sweat.
Sounds about right.
Yep. 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 All right. Wow, right on time today. I'm usually not that. So well, that's good, Miriam. There's no content. So we're gonna keep things light today and not answer any questions. Um, all right. Why don't we dive in? Do we have any questions yet?
We have a couple,
Yeah,
and
we
I
do.
think they'll be easy for you to answer also.
Oh, nice. I like easy questions. Easy questions are so much better than the hard ones. Ah, I'm excited about that.
So Fred, he's not on the
Um,
call right now. Oh, sorry, Blue. Did you want
mhm.
to?
No, no, go ahead.
Okay. So he wants to know a little bit about this ask a question button, if it was only meant to be for Obvio Q&A calls, or if this is something that he could put on his dashboard to offer his clients in place of a submit a question to customer service.
Yeah. So we built for everybody to use not long ago a form moderation feature. So the ask a question button on the Obvio dashboard here, and I'll share my screen so we can kind of go through it. It works pretty simply. So from an Obvio dashboard perspective, the ask a question button is a regular button that is linked to a form. And the form that it's linked to in the case of our event is new Obvio questions. That's what the form is called. So how it works when a button is linked to a form, it opens up as a pop-up or what we call a modal. So you get a little pop-up that allows you to ask a question. And if I go into the questions, I'll show you how it's set up. So first off, in for this particular question, we do allow multiple submissions, or for this particular form, we allow multiple submissions. And that's because we want people, of course, to be able to answer multiple questions or ask multiple questions, not just one. From there, we have the label for the button, which is just submit my question. And then we've written a messages submitted message, right? So it says, thank you for your question. You can close this window or wait 10 seconds and it will go away. If you have another question, click ask a question, click the ask a question button and submit another. So that is something that you can, I mean, you can model that or you can use your own language if you want. But once a form is submitted through a modal, it will automatically, like the thank you message or the submitted message will display automatically for 10 seconds and then the window will go away. Like it'll just disappear and the dashboard will return. From there, we have a really simple form. So we don't have a redirect URL. We're not submitting these to any third party via webhook. There's no points actions, although we could do that. We just have a single question inside the form, and that question's label is "What's your question?" It's a long answer, and it's a required question, but that's it. There's nothing else to it. Now, where the real magic comes in is when you go back to the forms page and you click on the three dots next to the new Obvio questions form, you're going to see an option called moderation. Now, moderation opens up a three-column form moderation tool. And as questions are submitted, they come into this incoming column. And then what Heather's doing is she's taking incoming questions and she's moving them, just clicking and dragging them into approved. And then once I've gone through and answered questions, she then just drags it on over to the next column. You also have a tab for answered questions and questions that have been thrown out. How you answer a question, you just click the little checkbox. How you trash a question, you just click the little trash icon. So that's the moderation feature, but it goes one step further, and there's a stage view, and this is really intended for, like, this back end page is intended for team members to moderate questions that a speaker will answer. Um, it's then intended to have this stage view page that is actually used to that is actually the page that is used to show the speakers on stage what questions are coming up. So we have the question name, or the person who submitted it, the time they submitted it, and then the question itself. And this page automatically updates without the need for a refresh as Heather clicks the checkbox. So if Heather would go ahead and click the checkbox next to Fred's first question, that ask a question, what you'll see happen without me kind of touching anything is that question, or that section should go away. And sometimes it takes a few seconds. So that's that. Now, the cool thing about this page is this page can actually work in this page works really well on a computer monitor, but it also works great on an iPhone, an iPad, something along those lines, something that's handheld, that is a little bit easier for the user to see. So that is essentially it. And yeah, so that's the form moderation tool. There is also a lower third option that I think is a pretty cool option that we use, that we use from time to time. And essentially, again, if I were to share my screen with you, and I click on one of the columns, I'm just going to use incoming as my example. I'm going to click on lower thirds. And what you'll see is a page that opens up that has the question, as well as a formatted window. And this is intended to be fed into a software switcher or hardware switcher like an A10 Mini Pro. And then for you to this may get a tiny bit technical, so I apologize, but essentially there's a feature called a key, and we remove the black background and take what's left and put it over top of the video. So this is a little bit more of an advanced feature for those of you who have video switchers and an extra computer to feed this in. But this page also automatically updates. So as as the questions move along, the top question in the column that you're working in, right? So right now I'm in incoming, but the top question in that column, which is where I'm at right now, because if you look at my URL, it says incoming right here, is the one that I see. And formatting it is super easy, right? You click on the gear and you have some formatting that is, probably very similar to what you would expect to see. It's similar formatting to how a button works, but a little bit different. And you can modify what that lower third looks like, the placement of it, etc., and then import those messages into your video. So as you're asking, or as you're answering a question, you can show the question itself to your audience. Do you need an extra device to moderate questions and another extra device to key through an ATEM? You probably want a spare device to key through an ATEM. You don't necessarily need another device to answer questions. It can just be the computer that you're running Zoom on, I suppose. But I would say when I'm just sitting at my desk right now, but when I'm sitting on stage answering questions using our moderation feature, I usually have an iPad with me, and there's a different version of the moderation page, that black stage view page, that has a checkbox and a little trash icon on it. So I can actually mark questions as answered as I go. So hopefully that answers your question. It's yeah, it's a pretty cool feature. It does have, you know, a little bit of, there's some advanced stuff in there. But I think it's really neat. The thing I like the most about it is that the people who are moderating can really be anywhere in the world, right? They don't need to be somebody who is sitting in your office or in your house. They can be literally anywhere in the world. And if you've given them some direction on what it is you're looking for and what are the rules for approval from your perspective, it's really a piece of cake.
Awesome. The next one is also from Fred. He wants to know about our Obvio Online YouTube channel where we hold all of our Q&A calls. He wants to know if it's a private channel and if that is a recommended way of storing and making available past recorded videos for our own dashboards.
I don't believe it's private.
Can I clarify a little bit on that question? So I have a ClickFunnels account that I'm trying to create kind of a members content area, but then I also really love my Obvio dashboard, and I'm just trying to figure out how to house things. And in particular, I'm looking to do kind of a weekly, similar to what you're doing here, you know, weekly Q&A and maybe a weekly like group coaching, and want to store those recordings for people to check back with.
For sure. So first off, the Obvio isn't a video delivery tool, right, or video storage mechanism in any way. So any video that you see on Obvio is almost always, well, actually not almost, it is always embedded from a third-party service, YouTube, Searchy, Wistia, Vimeo, something along those lines. I would say to you that for a short-term window, storing recordings on the Obvio dashboard is doable. I wouldn't necessarily say that it is the best way to deliver video, but if you're hosting a 3-day event and you want to deliver recordings, it's perfectly fine. But for a long-term weekly call where after 6 months you have 26 videos sitting on a page, the Obvio dashboard is not really designed for individual video delivery. So what you have to wind up doing is you have to take like the sponsor page or the speaker page and pretend each speaker or each sponsor is its own video. So you add a video as a, like, let's say you add a sponsor, you give the sponsor a title or a name like day one or the day of your video, and then you embed your recording into where the copy would normally go for the sponsor. The problem with that is that works perfectly fine when you have 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 videos. But if you have 20, 30, 40, 50 videos and it's just this huge, super long page, it's not a very functional system. It's not designed for that. So I would probably be hosting, I mean, I've said this before, I'm a huge fan of Searchy as a platform. ClickFunnels is awesome, but ClickFunnels doesn't give you, I don't believe ClickFunnels hosts video. I think, again, with ClickFunnels, you have to host your videos somewhere, and then you have to take those videos and embed them onto the ClickFunnels membership site, assuming you're using a membership site through ClickFunnels. The thing I like about Searchy is their feature called Hubs. And if you've been to the virtual event on virtual events, actually, you know what? A perfect example of a hub is where the Obvio workshop, like the onboarding workshops, are stored. That's a Searchy hub. So if I were to go, let me show it to you just really quickly. So workshop recordings right here on our dashboard, that's a Searchy hub. So when I go to this link, it's a really simple page, right? I've got my onboarding one, which is the first one, and then there's 8 other calls, and you can click on any single one of them. And when you do, just as you would expect, you can click play, watch the video. You can go through all 8 of them. The other thing that's cool about the Searchy feature is its searchability. So you can, if I wanted to look for the word forms, right? How do I do a form? So, what's introduction to forms? That's interesting. Click on that. Right. And now I can actually go straight to it. It takes me straight to that spot. Wow, I look awfully red that day. So that is, that's what I personally love about Searchy, is how easy it is from a user's perspective to use, and it's not terribly expensive, and it both hosts the videos and gives you that hub functionality that allows things to be searchable. It's also it's actually what we use in Leap as well. So where we house all of our recordings for Leap program, our coaching program, is inside of Searchy. And then we have a hub that's a little bit more robust than the one that is just for the Obvio Q&A update calls. That is where we deliver all of our videos from. So I don't know if that is the answer you were looking for, but it's
yeah, no,
the answer I gave. Okay.
Part of my questions, I'm not even sure exactly what I'm trying to ask. So all of that information was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Okay, yeah, I think I got there. All right, Heather, what's next?
I see Muddy has his hand raised. Did you want to say something on this, Muddy?
I just wanted to share two quick pro tips. One of the things that for the Obvio call, so there's 3 levels of security in YouTube, and unlisted, I think, is the one that it's the one I would recommend, right? Private means you have to specifically share their individual email address. Unlisted is typically the security level you would want, so that you can embed it, but someone can't just go to YouTube and search for it. The second thing I would say is that the way that Grant is doing on the Obvio dashboard, it's actually a playlist. Oh, sorry.
No, just for a second, unless they've changed it, embedding has YouTube added a whitelist functionality? Because private videos can't be embedded. I don't think private videos have the same problem whether you embed them or whether you share them. They still have to be shared with each individual user. So if you're planning on embedding a video, yeah. So if you're planning on embedding a video onto a website, don't use private. Private is really, it's like for you and like the five of your friends who you want to like share with manually. Otherwise, you want to use unlisted.
Yeah, basically, I never use private. Unlisted is typically what you want. The way that Grant on the Obvio update dashboard, there's just one post, but it automatically updates with the latest recording, because what that post has embedded in it is a playlist, not an individual video, so that each individual Obvio recording just gets added to the playlist, and the playlist is what's embedded. So that's one way to think about if you wanted to embed something on the dashboard, but not have, 10, 15, 20 different individual posts going down. It's one way you could do it. The last thing I would say is what my experience has been is that YouTube no longer allows you to customize the embedded window. So it always is going to say watch on YouTube or leave here and go to YouTube, or some other kind of screen debris that's related to YouTube branding. Vimeo, although it's a paid service, allows much more control over what that embedded video player is, if you want to have your own branding or no branding, or go to Vimeo or not, or even player controls. So if you or your client has Vimeo, I found that to be a little bit more robust tool or customizable tool for embedding videos. So that's all I want to share. Thanks.
So the next question is from Miriam. She might have asked this already, but when using Obvio with Marketplace, I don't need to link it to Go High Level because my notices for the event are sent from Obvio, right? Just after the event, I can pull from Obvio with all those tags, and then I can carry it over to GHL, correct?
Yes, that is how you can set it up.
So just to be like, I'm just trying to make things simple for me right now. So if once I start to get things built out, everything I need is in Obvio and Marketplace. And then I can just focus on that and not have to deal with anything else. And after, I'll pull everything out that I want and link up, go high level with Obvio after.
Correct. Yeah. The one thing, and we talked about this a little bit on last week's call. So the one downside, and we're working on a solve for this. But the one downside right now to doing what you're talking about, which is you have the marketplace, you have a marketplace purchase page, you have a thank you page, you have a purchase confirmation email. Those are all things that's what you're looking for, right? I want to send somebody to a page. I want them to register. I want to say thank you. I want them to get a receipt, which they get from Stripe, and I want them to get a a welcome email, which they get from you. Then you have the broadcast system or the communication engine, which allows you to send emails and SMS messages to your attendees leading up to your event, which is also what you want. And then post-event, yes, you can go in and export all of your attendees and import that information or import their contact details into high level. The one miss in that, or the one thing to be conscious of in that, is as you're sending out marketing emails, when you send out an email to your list in Go High Level, which is where you're going to send your marketing emails from, currently, unless you manually bring that information back from Obvio into High Level doesn't know who your attendees are. So as a result, when you send your second and third and fourth marketing communication to come to your event, you're going to be including people who have already potentially registered for your event. And personally, I don't love that. Now, there's a few ways around it. You can, daily go into Obvio and just do an export of your attendees, import that back into High Level, tag them as attendees once a day, and you're good to go. Or maybe not once a day, but 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you send out your email, go into Obvio, export your attendee list, and tag all of those people in High Level. Now, what I will tell you is within the next couple of weeks, we're going to start working. Once we have a few bugs worked out that we're working through on the marketplace feature, we're going to start making some upgrades to our service integrations. So what the intention is for you to be able to connect Obvio to High Level, even if you're not importing attendees from High Level. And then when you sell a ticket, for Obvio to send that contact information automatically back to High Level and tag them as an attendee that you tag them with tags that you specify.
Right.
So that kind of completes the circle. It allows you to send your marketing messages from High Level. And then when somebody purchases, Obvio says to High Level, hey, Blue Melnick just purchased. Let's tag him with the VIP ticket tag, right? And we're also going to be including, of course, the login URL. So if you do want to send communication from High Level, you can. You don't need to. You can send it from Obvio. But that'll make that process much, much easier. And I would say, we have to go through all 7 integrations manually. It's not something that we can make a change for one and it applies to all 7 integrations. So, we're going to just be going through those one at a time and adding that feature to each individual service integration as we go.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to go through that again, because it really made it clear that when they purchase, if before I'm going to send out marketing material, I download, I put it into Go High Level, and I basically exclude those people from that particular blast of, hey, come and buy. I can't stand that. Yeah, I got it.
That's it.
I've got it fully. Thank you, Blue.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then once we upgrade, the High Level integration to allow the, the marketplace sale back into high level feature set. It'll eliminate the need to have to export and manually tag those people. So, we've been conceptualizing it. Like, I spent a good amount of time with Grant over the weekend actually talking about it and how it was going to function. And I know the developer that we're going to be assigning it to, and I also know his workload. So he's probably a couple of weeks from starting on it, and then hopefully once the first one is done, because we have it pretty much spelled out and all the functionality is already there. It's just some additional steps that we have to put into place. But yeah, I think it'll work really well. Cool. Heather.
So Becky is going to be doing a Biz Bliss weekly hosted through Obvio, and she's offering a freebie for them to come and experience it. So they'll get their unique link in Obvio. However, she wants to know what's going to keep them from returning the next week using the same link. Since it's an ongoing event, does it give out a unique link each week or the same one?
If you're using the same event week after week, then yeah, there's technically, if you don't take any action once you import somebody into Obvio, then there is nothing stopping that person from coming back the following week. Now, with that being said, Becky, would you drop in the chat what CRM are you using inside of your, like, in your business? Are you using Keep? Are you using High Level? Are you using, okay. So I'm going to use language that I don't actually know how this works in High Level. My suspicion is what I'm about to tell you is possible and is not terribly difficult, but you're probably going to need some support from somebody who understands High Level and the different work, different processes and what they're called. If I was doing what you're talking about inside of Keep, what I would do is I would, when somebody registers for let's call it a Biz Blitz with me, I would tag them as an attendee. And then I would add them to a campaign, a very simple campaign, and have that campaign have a 7-day delay in it, or maybe a 6-day delay. And at the end of the 6 days, I would remove the attendee tag. Removing the attendee tag would then remove them from Obvio. So even if they have the login URL that you sent them for week 1, that login URL will stop functioning because their attendee record will be removed from Obvio. Now, here's the thing. You're going to want to have some sort of process or automation so that if that person then purchases your membership, it removes them from that 6-day countdown, right? So you don't crush their spirit by removing them from the thing they just purchased. So you want to have that, that if purchased, remove from countdown timer to remove attendee tag. And I know that that's possible in Keep. My suspicion is that is possible in High Level as well. I just don't know what it's called, but that's the process that you want to have in place. All right, Heather.
So Melanie wants to know if you can share the differences in an A10 Mini Pro versus an Extreme.
Yeah, there's probably 5 or 6 differences. The biggest difference is the number of inputs and the number of outputs. So number one, an ATEM Extreme has 8 inputs versus an A10 Mini Pro that has 4. In addition to that, the A10 Extreme has 2 HDMI outputs that can be used for like a program feed or a multi-view or what's called a solo feed or an ISO feed of one of your inputs, versus the A10 Mini Pro's 1. The Extreme also has 2 USB-C ports on it, versus the A10 Mini Pro's 1. The thing about about the USB-C ports. They can be used, like the nice thing about the Extreme is you could have like a hard drive plugged into one port that is doing recording, and then you could have the other port plugged into your computer that is bringing in the video feed from your A10 Mini Extreme into Zoom, which is essentially what I have on my desk. So those are the main hardware differences. There's a couple of other differences, one being the inclusion of something called a super source feed in the ATEM Extreme, which is really an amazing, really awesome feature. Up until they released the ATEM Extreme, the only way to get a super source or the super source functionality was to purchase like a minimum $5,000 rig. So, they brought a feature that was at the high end and brought it into a more entry level, not the absolute entry level, but a more entry level thing. And what the super source allows for is if you've seen us do like a side by side where there's a background image and then like there's a person speaking and then there's Barry and I on stage, that's a super source. What Muddy is doing is probably a super source. So there, some of those more customized 2 to 4 video signals is really the big ones. And then, there's a couple of other things like they have extra keyers, I believe. Yep. Actually, there you go. That's what Muddy is saying. That last one is there's 4 keyers versus 1. So those are the main features. You probably won't use the keyer. And if we're all being honest, that's probably not something that you probably are going to worry about. And with all that being said, you have to make a decision as to whether or not it makes sense, right? These are hardware devices, so they're not upgradable. It's not like you can buy the A10 Mini Pro and then like buy a software upgrade and it becomes an A10 Extreme. I will tell you that I have both sitting on my desk. I have an A10 Extreme, which you'll notice has nothing plugged into it because I'm not using it. And then I have a A10 Mini Pro, which is sitting right here on my desk that I can cut between 2 video feeds. And I had the ATEM Extreme plugged in for a while, but on my desk, I only have 2 video sources, and I never really used the super source in this scenario, like where I publish from my desk. And I like the form factor. I like the size of the A10 Mini Pro. With that being said, if you think you're going to have 3 cameras, I would 100% get the A10 Extreme, because I know 3 means you have 1 spare, but when you only have 1 spare, the moment you plug something else in, that's the time that you're going to want to plug one other thing in, and now you can't. So, it's a $600 difference or so. This would probably be what Grant would say is buy once, cry once. Because the A10 Extreme will last a good while longer. It's one of those things that it makes you a little bit more future-proof. And with that being said, the one that I'm using sitting on my desk is an A10 Mini Pro. So take that for what it's worth. You're welcome.
So it looks like Becky has a bit of a follow-up question to our marketplace one. She wants to know if they purchase for the subscriptions, would they do that through Obvio Marketplace, or how would Obvio know? Also, one of the subscriptions would allow them to come 2 times a month. So somehow they would need to sign up for which blitz they wanted, and the other subscription would allow them the unlimited access to her event.
Yeah, so the 2 times a month thing versus unlimited is going to be a difficult thing to programmatically fix and solve for. Because you could probably do it, but it would be a lot of effort, and I would hesitate to to do that. The other thing, subscriptions are not supported by Obvio, only individual purchases. So if you want subscription payments, that's something that you're going to have to do through a third party. And I would just stick to unlimited if I was you. So the third party, I'm guessing high level can do subscription payments. So that's probably how I would be selling my membership. I don't know if high level supports annual subscriptions. That's not to be cheeky. I'm not trying to be cheeky, but that's a question for high level. I really don't know the answer to that. If I did, I'd tell you, I promise.
As a reminder, make sure you guys have any questions, put it through the dashboard. We have a button on the update.obv.io dashboard to ask a question, because right now we do not have any more. And we have 23 people on this call.
Lovely. They just came to hear our banter, Heather. Just you and I going back and forth. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I don't think I'm as entertaining as Grant is. And I don't have that accent that goes with it. So
well, you have an accent. I mean, don't sell yourself short. All right. So let's see. Trying to think if I can share with you a couple of things that are new on Obvio. We've been spending some time quashing bugs this week. Oddly enough, we've also spent some time creating some. So go us. There have been the majority of the work that we've been focused on this week has been inside of Marketplace. So for those of you that are using it, and in case you missed last week's announcement, if you have an event coming up, I wouldn't recommend you use Marketplace if your event is like next week, right? Use whatever you have in place already. But if you have an event coming up within the next few weeks, the Marketplace is solid. One of the things that we are working on right now, currently, there's a requirement by Marketplace to be connected to Stripe. And that requirement is because Marketplace was originally designed for paid events, as Obvio was in general. And as we have been putting a little bit more focus on the ability for our users to host free events a little bit more conveniently, something that came to our attention was the requirement to connect Stripe when all you want to do is enroll people in a free event seems a little bass-backwards. So we're in the process of removing that requirement. It's already halfway implemented, but essentially what will wind up happening is if you don't have Stripe connected inside of the Marketplace ticket system, you will only be able to create free tickets. And the moment you try and create a ticket that has a price that is greater than 0, the system won't let you save it, and will ask you to connect Stripe so that you can. So that's one of the changes which I'm happy about. It's not a huge change, right? Setting up a Stripe account is really not the end of the world. And if you're doing free events, hopefully at some point you're going to want to do a paid event as well. But we just thought it was a nice touch. Something else that we've added, of course, we realized that it's not very easy to find the link to your Marketplace sales page. So we're working on a summary page that is kind of similar to like the event statistics page, where you have some stats, but also some key links for Marketplace. But for now, if you go to your purchase page, up at the top, there's a little copy button. And if you hover over, it says copy purchase page URL. And that is your URL for your events page, right? So, that's how you get your URL for the purchase page. You can still click preview. The preview link currently is pretty much the exact same as the purchase page. At least it behaves the same way today. But I will tell you that those links are slightly different, and I wouldn't use the preview link for your attendees. There is going to be a functional difference between those links in the not so distant future. So just keep that in mind. So just that little copy icon right here is the icon that allows you to get your purchase page link. There isn't a link for thank you pages currently, and that's because generally speaking, people you shouldn't be giving people a link to the thank you page. They should go to the purchase page to get the thank you page. So you can preview the thank you page if you create one. The way the system is working currently, if you don't, thank you pages are optional, believe it or not. You don't need to create a thank you page in order to actually have a purchase. If you don't have a thank you page, what will happen when somebody purchases is they will automatically be forwarded to their dashboard, to the dashboard URL. So the thank you page is optional. It's an extra step. And we are working on some design templates for that thank you page right now. But it is a nice option to have if you do want to have some sort of intermediary page, or if your dashboard isn't ready yet, right? Your dashboard doesn't have to be ready for you to sell tickets. You can have just a thank you page that says, thanks a lot for registering, you're awesome. Click here to join the Facebook group, and not have a link to the dashboard. So there you go. Those two things are in place currently. And then we made a ton of other little minor updates to the platform this week. A lot around countdown timer, because the countdown timer had some glitches in it, but it's a lot more functional today than it was. We made some changes to the grid block. For those of you who are using it, you know what the grid block is, but for those of you who haven't yet, what the grid block is, the way Marketplace works is when you build a page has sections separated by these little white spots with the diagonal blue lines. And inside of sections, you can have blocks of content. And the types of blocks that you can have are titles, text, images, videos, buttons, a ticket selector. You can have a purchase form. One of these two is required. The purchase form is required if you only have one ticket available. The ticket selector is required if you have more than one ticket available. You then also have bulleted lists, numbered lists, FAQ lists, countdown timers, icons, separators, which are essentially lines, grids, and spacers. Now, what grids are a special kind of block, and they are a block that have blocks within it. So this right over here is a grid block, and you'll see there's these little blue outlines. There's multiples within it. So this particular block, if I extend it a little bit, you'll see it a little differently, but it actually has an image block within it. It has a title block within it, and it has a text block within it. Now, the reason you may want to have a grid block in place is so that like in my case, our usage, or the usage that we have envisioned for this, is specifically for the type of thing that I've done right here, which is I have 3 speakers on my demo page, and I want these pieces of information to go with each other. So if I wanted to change the order of Barry, Grant, and Blue, I just change the order by moving it like that. And it moves all of the items, the image, the title, and the text. The other reason that you may want a block is to make sure that when you go to mobile, that the items or that the actual individual blocks remain together. So when you go into mobile, that'll be a little bit easier if they're in a grid. But you can always just reorder pretty simply on the mobile editor without without any major issues or concerns. Okay, so the change that you'll notice inside of grids is there's this new kind of horizontal lined area up at the top where icons live, and there's a little blue plus icon, and that plus icon is how you add blocks to a grid. And it, if you've used the marketplace before or you saw me demo it, it used to be a little add block button down at the bottom. But that was it was hard to get to and hard to make sure that you got your spacing right. So we made some changes to how it works.
Hey, Blue, could I ask you really quick? What is the percentage of people that are looking at our events online, generally speaking, on a mobile phone? Is there a standard number that
90.
you work?
Yeah,
most
90.
People do? Really?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Yeah, so you really want to make sure that you don't just because you're likely gonna edit it on your desktop, and the Obvio dashboard editor is really is designed to be used on a desktop. You can technically use it on mobile, but it's a little tricky. It's actually a lot tricky, and I probably would recommend that you spend the majority of your time editing on a desktop. With that being said, the editor itself switches or has the ability to switch up at the top to mobile. Another change that we made this week to the marketplace system is that this bar up at the top, this preview, mobile, and page settings used to scroll up as you scrolled up. So we've made that bar sticky because one of the things that I found as I was working is if every time I wanted to click the preview icon, I would like be scrolling all the way to the top, and then I'd click preview, and then I'd go all the way back down to where I was. So we found it a little bit easier just to make that sticky. It also means that you can easily switch back and forth between mobile and desktop without having to constantly scroll all the way up to the top. Muddy, I see you have your hand raised, or you had your hand raised. It's now.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the mobile preview. Basically, since a lot of people will be viewing on mobile, it seems useful to be able to preview it that way. And I think at one point, in the beta, it was a little dangerous to switch to mobile view. And so just checking that seems stable. And edits, if you are in mobile, well, I guess you're not in mobile, you're not editing when you're in preview, but you can make certain blocks visible only in mobile. And is there a way to edit how they show up in mobile? Kind of forget.
There is, yeah. So there's a couple things about the mobile editor. So when you toggle, first off, individual blocks, all of them have this select visibility feature that you're talking about, which is individual blocks can be on all, which is desktop and mobile. They can be mobile only, or they can be desktop only. So, and that's true of individual blocks. It's also true of full sections. So you can design a section that is for mobile, and then you can design a completely separate section that is for desktop. Now, generally speaking, that's not necessary, but it is possible. Now, how things work when you flip back and forth between mobile and desktop, generally the edits that you're making to existing blocks don't affect the other, right? So, here, if you see, I don't know if you caught it, but when I flipped to mobile, I noticed that my sizing was a little bit off. So I made some adjustments to sizing of each of these individual blocks, and then I updated the size of this block right here. Now, I just did all those changes here on the mobile editor, but when I flip back to the virtual editor, it doesn't actually, there's an issue with images. It's not supposed to change the size of individual things on either one, right? So if I am in here and let's see. Let me see if I can give you an example. If I make change to something on mobile, it's technically not supposed to, right? So if I make this change right here, make that a little bit bigger, if I make this a tiny bit smaller, things like that, those changes, when you flip back and forth, don't affect. Now, there are some instances like the video block itself that makes it look like it affects it. But when you, and this is a bug that we're working on, but if you just refresh the page, the video will refill the full block. So going back and forth won't or shouldn't affect the other thing. If it does, please let us know. And same with changing the order, right? So this first block, like let's say I wanted to put the button to register right at the top. And then when I flip back, it's still at the bottom on desktop. So even though I made that change on mobile, the order and things like that are specific to each platform or each view. This is an example. This spacer block is an example of something that is it's very this is an example of something that's desktop only. So I wanted to make sure that there was a little bit of space at the top of this particular design, but I didn't want that on mobile. So when we built that template, or when we built this particular template, we made that view that for desktop only. So there's another piece which is this block right here. On mobile looks a little bit different. And this as seen on, even though it exists in both, this one's mobile only. And then when I go to desktop only, it's formatted differently, even though it looks very similar. This one is desktop only. But the image itself is for all. So when I'm flipping back and forth, we just made in that particular case, the way I wanted it to be shown was there. And you can't make formatting decisions that are unique on, you can make spacing decisions and order decisions that are unique to mobile and to desktop, but you can't go in to the styling and change the style on mobile and have it not affect desktop. Styling changes will go across both mobile and desktop. So because I wanted that text to be left justified on desktop and center justified on mobile, I just created 2 text blocks and had one desktop only and one mobile only.
And it's nice to notice that each of those blocks that are desktop only or mobile only are only visible when you're in that mode in editing as well. It kind of disappears from the interface. Yep. That's cool. Yeah, nice work.
Yeah, and that change happens in real time. So if you go in and you change something to desktop only and click save, it'll collapse and disappear. You don't, or you're not supposed to. I say that in quite a few areas because there's a lot of things that we're still working on. This is I think this is a surprisingly, I say surprisingly robust builder because we never intended to have a page builder that was this capable. So next week when Grant is back, make sure that you tell him that I instituted, or I had the developers institute his idea. But much like some of the other ideas he's had, he'll probably claim this one for life. But it's the fact that when you click add a block, you used to have to you have to click the block you want and you click add. Now that's not all that earth-shattering, right? That's what we have to do the majority of the time in very many places. But we added this feature where you could just double-click the one you wanted, and now it actually adds like that. So that little double-click is something that I'm certain Grant will claim for life, and tell us how awesome that idea was. Sarah, I see you have your hand raised.
I was just wondering about on like if you're trying to change something like moving the button from the bottom of the page to the top of the page, and then you like changed it in desktop, but you wanted it to also be changed in mobile, would you have to go over to mobile and do like it again? Or is there a way to do
Yep.
it, or is there a way to do them both at the same time?
No, that's something that it's by design like that. So when you move it on mobile, it doesn't affect desktop. And if you want to change it, you would have to change it in both places. That's correct.
Okay. Just, I mean, it's not big, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, what I will tell you is, in my experience with it, we had to make a choice, right? You could have one or the other. You can't have we can't have it be so that, okay, mobile affects desktop or mobile doesn't affect desktop. You can't have mobile sometimes does and sometimes doesn't, because that's not a great user experience. And I'll tell you, in my working with it, more often than not, I don't want the change to happen on desktop, right? I want it to be different on mobile. Now, I have had instances where, where I'm like, oh man, oh, I need to fix it in both places. But I've had it more often the other way, which is why we made the decision to have the mobile editor not functionally affect the order of desktop. Something else that I'll tell you is sections. There's a few things that kind of came up that I think are really cool features and functionalities. These larger blocks, these sections of content, can be reordered. So inside the section header, there's a gear where you can apply some different styling, you can apply visibility, and so on and so forth. Next to that, there are up and down arrows. Those up and down arrows allow you to take the entire section and move it down or back up. So if you want to change an order of an entire section, you can. You can also copy entire sections. Now, when you click copy, it makes a duplicate of the section and puts it right below in its entirety. And then, of course, you can remove full sections. Keep in mind there is no undo function. So if you remove a section and you meant to remove a block, just be cautious. However, unlike the dashboard editor, that didn't have confirmations of removal for the longest time. When we added the confirmations of removal to the dashboard editor, we brought that same functionality over to the sales page builder. So at least you get a confirmation before the whole thing disappears.
Okay.
Something else that's a little bit tricky for you guys to know is you can easily move individual blocks around in a section. But you can't take individual blocks and just drag it to another section. They're kind of locked into that section. Except there is a way to move them. It's just a little different. You have to go into the gear, and there is a move down option inside of the individual device, right? So or inside the individual block. So that allows you to move items down or up, depending on what it is that you're looking to do. So a little bit, a little bit of a, I'll just say it's not perfect. We would love for it just to be a simple drag between blocks, but for now, in the effort to actually get it into your hands, we made the decision to have it be something, or at least you have the functionality. You can also copy individual blocks. When you copy a block, it makes a duplicate of that one block. So a lot of those little pieces and parts are in place right from the get-go, as you would expect.
Great. Thank you. Just another quick question. So as you said, if you move a button in desktop, then it won't do the same thing in mobile view. Is it the same for, like, it sounds like if you would finished customizing the whole thing, you'd have to go over to mobile and customize it again in mobile. or does it like?
That is correct. That is correct.
So you have to make it twice?
And I would listen, and here's the thing. I would recommend you do that on any platform anyway, Sarah. You know, it really, whatever page builder you're working with, whether it's, you know, WordPress or one of the WordPress builders or ClickFunnels or High Level, you know, all of the page builders make decisions based on what it thinks you are probably trying to do. However, I will tell you in my experience, you know, 10 times out of 10, I have to make changes to the mobile editor or the mobile view on one of those other platforms. It has never gotten them perfect. And I always want to adjust it to be a little bit more exactly how I want it. So yeah, I would just tell you that whether you're making edits on Obvio or you're using another third-party platform, you're probably going to want to look at the mobile view as well as the desktop view.
Desktop. Okay, I understand that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we were able to get a few more questions in also while you went through all of that.
Sweet.
So Fred wants to do his dashboard to make it ongoing, like the one that we have for our Obvio Q&A calls. He wants to know what the best way is to set the event dates.
Today and as far in the future as your little clicky hand can take.
So just to clarify that, so it doesn't have to be like year to year, like it doesn't have to be January or whatever, December 31st.
No, I'm pretty sure this event ends in. Actually, you know what? Wait, what event am I in? No, this is I'm in a different event. Hold on one second. I don't remember when this one ends, but I know I have another event that ends sometime in 2027. So there's no limit on event duration. There used to be, you know, Fred, I think you've been around for a while. And at one point there used to be limitations on event duration. You used to have to have events be, or you used to want to have events be less than 4 days in duration, but we changed that. You know, I don't know, a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So even though it's an ongoing dashboard, it's still considered an event. It's just the dates are spread.
Just a super long event. Yeah.
Just a super long event, a lifetime event. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. This event started December 21st of 2021. Sorry, December 22nd of 2021. And its current end date is December 31st of 2024. The event that we're in right now. And we haven't touched it in quite some time. Although it sounds like we're going to have to at the end of this year if we don't want to lose it.
Awesome. And those dates you can keep pushing them out. That's correct.
You can. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Blue, we haven't changed it, but Basic still has a duration limit, correct? Pro does not.
You know, I think you're right. I don't remember in this moment. I haven't looked at the Basic plan limits in a while. But I do think you're right. I think Basic may have a 4-day limit or 5-day limit. I don't remember.
Just wanted to throw that out there if anyone's on Basics.
Yeah.
So our next question is from Linda. Does Obvio integrate with one shopping cart, which is direct pay, that has been her shopping cart for many years?
As a payment processor, is that what you mean? Who's that? Who asked that question? Linda?
Linda, yeah.
Yeah, Linda, do you mean as a, like, instead of using Stripe, can I use one shopping cart? Is that what you mean? You can put that in your answer.
It's for everything. It's a payment and database and autoresponder broadcasts the whole system.
Okay. Yeah, so currently, Marketplace, from a payment processing perspective, only integrates with Stripe. Now, it's not our Stripe account, it's your Stripe account. So that's the good news. So if you want to use 1Password, I think that's, no, not 1Password, One Shopping Cart. You're going to want to use a One Shopping Cart page, or a page builder that integrates with One Shopping Cart. Now, if you want to, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I think it answers the question, although perhaps not the way you were hoping.
Oh, I'm not sure either. I have to look at it and see. I know that right now I do have my page built on my website, WordPress, and all my products are in one shopping cart. So I just have to play with it and see what my questions actually are. I just don't know how to use
no worries.
I don't know how to use the Zapier. I don't know how to use the Zapier thing. So I was just confused. Just wanted to know.
Yeah. Zapier, think of Zapier really as a tool that allows you to connect different platforms and share information back and forth.
Right.
You know, Zapier by itself technically doesn't do very much. It's really just an interconnect platform. They're getting more and more. They have more and more things that they actually can do, but generally speaking, it's an interconnect platform. And I believe One Shopping Cart has native integration with Zapier, as does Obvio. So if you needed to get Obvio and One Shopping Cart to talk to each other, you probably could. And I'm sure there's even some people on this call who could probably help you with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Sarah's hand is raised. Did you have a follow-up question, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just wondering how long these Q&As were gonna last, if they just last forever, or
You know, forever is a long time, but this is how I'll answer it. We don't have any intention of ending the Q&A calls at this time.
okay.
So
Just making sure that you were gonna
I
leave
don't know if
us.
I could be more vague for you, but I could certainly try. But yeah, no, we're not. We're intending on keeping them active for now. And I'll tell you, Sarah, and this is for everybody, the main reason why we continue to do these calls is because our support documentation is, to use a technical term, garbage. And probably, I was talking with Grant about it this weekend. We actually we're in the process of contemplating starting from scratch, starting over, because we haven't actually updated our documentation since some of the initial iterations of Obvio version 4, which is the version that we're technically in right now, were released back in March of 2021. So, you know, if you go in and you look at the documentation on the knowledge base, which we don't even share. We used to end these calls by sharing the link and telling you where to find that. We don't even share that anymore because, truthfully, I'm embarrassed to have you go there. So for now, we have these calls. We have the onboarding workshop calls, which are, we think, useful. We provide chat support between 9 and 5 p.m. There's the Facebook group that has, is a great place to get answers. So, for now, these calls are definitely here to stay. Heather, do we have any other questions, or are we?
Yeah. Timothy would love a suggestion for a camera like the one that you are using now. He just ordered an Obspot tail.
Yeah, I will tell you, I think in general, the camera is probably the least important thing in your toolbox. I happen to be using a camera that I bought 3 years ago. I have no intention and no need to upgrade it anytime soon. I'm personally using a Sony camera. I think it's an A6600. I don't remember what the current version of this camera is. Like, I don't remember the number of it. But Sony continues to sell some of the old ones. Yeah, I've not used the OBS bot or the OBS bot or whatever they're calling it. I've heard good things. A lot of people also like this little guy, which is the Insta360 link, or is it Insta360? Insta Link 360. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's the link by Insta360. Yeah, that's what it is. And I think the main reason why it's a decent camera, it's fine. Like, it still looks like a webcam to me, right? And for me, the thing that is webcam, or what makes it look like a webcam, is the fact that the background that you're standing in front of generally is this. It looks like it's in focus the same way you are, right? It's a pretty flat image. Whereas in the shot that you see on my camera, what's behind me is a little bit more out of focus, a little bit more separated from the primary subject. And you don't get that with a lot of these smaller cameras. But the main reason that I think a lot of people like this camera is some of its AI functions, where it kind of it tracks back and forth and up and down with you. So if you move a little bit, it's a pretty neat little camera. I think the OBS or whatever OBSBot, if memory serves, one of their versions does pretty much the same thing. Am I remembering the same camera, Muddy? Or is it, yeah, I am. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think I think this is a neat little camera. You really kind of have to make a decision, when you're getting into video broadcasting. Okay, because that's really what we're doing. We're doing video broadcasts, right? And I think the decision that you have to make, whether you're doing virtual events or webinars or summits or challenges or live launches, or you're recording a course, whatever it is that you're doing, you kind of have to. I would recommend that you forward think, and by that I mean, generally speaking, we usually recommend that you buy for where you want to be in 2 to 3 years, if you can afford it, not for where you are today, right? Because the downside to going with a little webcam like this is, if at some point you're like, okay, I am ready, I'm going to buy one of these, right? I'm going to go out to the store and I'm going to get myself an A10 mini because I want to be able to press a button and for it to switch between camera and computer and, another camera and whatever, right? The moment you do that, you can't use this, right? This now becomes useless because this is a USB camera. And while there are ways to plug a USB camera into an HDMI input device, I wouldn't do it if I was you. So I think this is one of those situations where, similar to what Grant said earlier when we were talking about the ATEM Extreme, buy once, cry once. I probably, there's no reason for me to have spent whatever I think it was like $1,400 with the lens for this camera, but I'm probably going to use it for another 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, unless I drop it or my dog chews on it, and it's likely to be fine for quite some time. So yeah, I think, think about where you want to go. And if you can afford the slightly higher end, I would do it. And there are times that I actually think that something like this, I wouldn't buy something like if I, depending on your computer, right? So I have my primary computer, computer when I'm not sitting at my desk. At my desk, I have a Mac Mini. that's mounted under my desk, and I've got basically 3 monitors in front of me. But everywhere else, I have a 2014 MacBook Pro. And sorry, a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And this particular MacBook Pro, I think it's a 2021. Like, it is not a brand new computer. It is 2021. And I tend to keep a computer for, this may come as a surprise for some of you, right? Because you guys know that I like toys, right? And I like electronics, and it probably wouldn't, if I were to tell you that I buy a computer every time a new one is released, it would probably not come as a surprise to anybody on this call. But the reality is, I generally keep my notebook computers for 3, sometimes 4 years. And that's because when I buy them fully loaded. So this particular 2021 14-inch MacBook Pro is the highest end chip that was available at the time. It was not the most amount of RAM you could put into a computer, but a good amount. It has 64 gig of RAM in it, and it's got 4 terabytes of space. So yeah, it cost me a good amount of money when I bought it, but I have no desire right now to buy a new computer. And I edit video on this, I do graphics on this, and then I browse the web a lot. But that's one of those instances of kind of buy once, cry once. I'd rather spend a couple $1,000s, honestly, a couple $1,000s more, or twice the amount of the entry-level MacBook Pro, and be able to use it for 3 to 4 years than, feel like in a year to 2 years, I feel like my Mac is slowing down, right? So, these are just decisions, and I understand that some of those decisions are bound by finance, situational circumstances. But if you can afford it, I think one of the bigger cameras, one of the bigger computers is always a smart way to go.
Sweet. And once again, we are running out of questions. If you guys have any more, please let us know.
We're also happy to just say thank you for being here. It's been awesome to see you. Have a good night. Enjoy your week. Carolyn, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just ask a real quick question. So I've been in Obvio, just playing with the dashboards, trying to get all that set up. And I was playing with the Zoom areas and creating that, and then trying to test it to see if it would kind of, if it would link in. So it goes back to my organization when I put it in preview mode and hit that button. So I don't know if I just haven't gotten far enough along in the training yet, or if I'm doing something wrong. So I just thought I would ask.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You're probably not doing anything wrong. But the buttons don't all work as you would think they work when you're in preview mode. So what you need to do to really the preview mode is meant as a design look, not so much a functionality look. Okay. So if you really want to access the event and see what it would look like, or access the dashboard and see what it would look like as an attendee, then your best bet is actually to create an attendee inside of your event and log in as that person. Once you do, once you do, and once you do, then the buttons will function as you would expect. So when you click on a button that's linked to an area, you'll be sent into that area.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so I could just put myself in as a secondary email and check it that way.
You got it. I mean, you can put yourself in as the primary email. It doesn't, as long as how you're putting it in doesn't already have an attendee record in your event. It's not in any way related to your Obvio account email. You can use the same email address. It doesn't matter.
Okay, got it. That's what I was going to ask. Okay, great. And then one more question while I've got you. So if I wanted, so what my intent was, I wanted to use this for our high ticket offer that we're delivering, just to kind of get used to it. So start doing webinars and master classes and all of that. I'll have a great idea of how I'm using it. So with that being said, I can just go in and would I just send them like the one? So we have, okay, so kind of like you all have in Leap, we have each week we have a different call at a different time. So would
Right.
we just post like one link and then they would just access the dashboard at that particular time each, with our call schedule, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So, what you're really talking about is how do I get my attendees into my event, right?
Yes.
And generally speaking, Obvio dashboards are a membership site, right? Like just at a super high level, they're a membership site.
Okay.
And they're a membership site that really requires, you can kind of work your way around this, but I wouldn't. It really is a membership site that requires each of your attendees to have their own login to the dashboard. And how that works, I was saying this to somebody recently. None of us need in our life yet another email or username and password that we have to remember, right? Like I feel like none of us feel like that's important in our life.
Right.
So what we decided to do with Obvio early on is we said, okay, we want to make sure that we create essentially a magic link sort of thing where attendees can log in nice and easily.
Okay.
So when you go in, and I'm just going to go into a Sage event. There we go. So when you go into a Sage event and you go into attendees, each of these attendees has their own login URL. And in order to log in to your event, ideally what you're doing is you're sending your attendees their login URL. And that's what we do for this call, right? When we send you a link that says, hey, Blue's about to get on, or Blue and Grant are about to get on, on the line, we send you your magic link. We email it to you. Now we're doing it through Keep, just because everything that we do is generally speaking through Keep. So we use the Keep integration to add attendees into Obvio. And that integration then takes the login URL for each individual attendee and copies it back into a custom field inside of Keep, so I can merge that custom field into an email that I send out. So when you get an email from us for this call, somebody didn't sit there and type out, 700 individual emails that has each individual link, right? We merged the same way we add your first name in automatically, we add your login URL automatically. Now, what CRM do you use currently? HubSpot? Okay, so we have native integration with HubSpot, and how our native integration HubSpot integration, how our native integration with HubSpot works is using contact lists. So HubSpot has what are called contact properties, and then it has lists. So what you need to do to get your HubSpot attendees, or your attendees who are ideally already in HubSpot, into Obvio, you could do it manually. But what I would do is I would create a list inside of HubSpot, and it can be an active list or it can be a static list. It doesn't matter to us. Once you create that list, you then connect Obvio and HubSpot, and you say to Obvio, hey, this is the list that has my my attendees in it. And then you also create a contact property where we can store the login URL for your attendees in HubSpot, in their HubSpot contact record. So you'd call it like coaching program Obvio login URL. Please don't just call it Obvio login URL, because if you then create a second event, you'll get confused. Right. So include the event name or coaching program in the name of the contact property. And then as people get added to that list, Obvio and HubSpot talk to each other every 5 minutes or so, and it imports everybody in that list into Obvio, and it copies their login URL back into HubSpot. Now, for you, once a week, when you send out your call information from HubSpot, you're going to merge in the contact property for the login URL into the email. And that's technically what's going on.
Okay. And so that merging, is that something that, like, I guess, do I set that up like as an automatic, or is that something that I go in and like?
You mean when you send out the email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
so when you send out when you send out an email in HubSpot, you know how you have the ability to add customization, like their first name in the email address, like in the email.
yes.
Yeah. So the same place that you can add a user's first name, and it comes in as a little piece of code, right? It comes in as what looks like some sort of code, and it's specific to HubSpot. So I don't remember the exact code that it comes in as. But in that same area, you can insert any contact property, not just first name and last name. You can insert any contact property. So you'll insert a similar thing further down in the email. You put something like, click here to access your dashboard. And then you'll put colon and a space and insert the custom field or contact property, as HubSpot calls it, into the email that you're sending.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, great. Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. When you get closer to all that, if you're having any problems, feel free to hop on one of these calls. We can walk it through with you via screen share.
Yeah, I definitely will. Thanks.
You're welcome. Irina.
Well, to confirm that, in Active Campaign, it would be field, right? You call it contact property, that's in the HubSpot, but in Active Campaign, it's the field, not the tag, but the field.
Correct. Custom field. It's called a custom field in Active Campaign.
Right. So you insert in your email, you insert custom field where the magic link should be.
You got it.
Right? Okay. My question was, when I raised my hand, it's actually a tech question. If you could have maybe an idea. I have Panasonic Lumix camera, the main one, and I started noticing for the last 2 times I was teaching on Obvio. It's not Obvio fault. I know it's not. But on a Zoom, I know what you like to hear, that it's not Obvio's fault. So it's the screen on the bottom started flickering periodically. It would be like a flicker, and then it would stop, and then it would flick again. And then I switched to my Insta360 link, and it stopped. So I think it's the camera, because after that it was fine with the Insta-link. But it's already twice. What could be, Madi says, like an issue with the cable?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That sort of flicker, yeah, it usually does sound to me like when we have flickers like that in our studio, which happens, it's usually a cable. It's usually not the device. It's almost always a cable. Now, it may be the device. Keep in mind that there's 4 things that it could be, right? So that when I'm doing troubleshooting, you think of where the thing originates and where it ends, and those 2 things plus everything in the middle is a potential break point. So what it could be is, and I generally try to replace the cheapest things first. Okay, so the cheapest thing is going to be the cable, right? You can get a Amazon Basics HDMI cable for like $5 or whatever it is. They're not expensive. Don't buy an HDMI cable from Best Buy. That's all I'll tell you.
I have
and not
a
that they're
store. I can open a store with HDMI cables from your list, and it
you
was
and
from
me both. Let's open a store and make some money. Okay, so that's the first thing that may be a problem. The second thing that may be a problem is maybe the cam link is having problems. Okay, so and that's the second cheapest thing to replace.
What is cam link?
The cam you didn't you say that you're connected the HDMI to the computer via, or you're going into what? Where's the HDMI going into?
No, my camera goes into ATEM. ATEM Extreme.
Okay, got it. So it could be the ATEM. It could be there. It's possible that there's something wrong with the ATEM. I doubt it. That's probably not the issue. Okay. An easy thing to do if you have an empty port on the ATEM, because it sounds like maybe one of your other, have you tried a different video source, or is it like, I know you said you switched to your Insta360, but is that plugged into your ATEM, or is that just a different camera?
No,
It's not plugged into your ATEM.
Doesn't work. No, it doesn't work with ATEM, so it's not.
Okay, just making sure you're not using some fancy doohickey to connect the two.
No.
So you could try. I will tell you, every once in a while I have to restart my ATEM Mini Pro. Like I have to unplug it and power cycle it. It could be the camera that needs to be power cycled. So in your case, you have three things, right? You have camera, HDMI cable, ATEM Mini Pro. It's going to be one of those things that's the problem. And, again, I start by replacing the things that are cheapest. So cable first, then I would try power cycling the ATEM Mini Pro. Actually, that's probably the first thing I would do. The third thing I would do is I would try a different port on the ATEM Mini Pro, right? Like, so instead of, if it's plugged into input 1, plug it into input 2 or 3 or 4. And then the last thing that I would try is a different camera. And I agree 1000% with Muddy. Long HDMI cables, especially when paired with Blackmagic hardware, do not do well. They just don't do well. Yeah. I'm
from Muddy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You just don't. I have a 50-foot HDMI cable. It works fine for plugging a computer into a TV. It does not work for plugging a camera into my ATEM. I don't know why.
No, I have 6 feet cables. Work.
Perfect. Yeah. So those are the things that you can try.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, Carissa.
Hey, Blue, very, very quickly on that. The other thing I found is that many digital cameras have a micro HDMI port on them. So sometimes you end up with a little adapter that goes from micro HDMI to HDMI. Those can also be a similar related source of problems. And I find unplugging them and plugging them back in helps reestablish that connection, because HDMI cables kind of make this handshake when they go active. And if you don't have a real good connection, that could be a source of the problem. So, thanks.
Yep. 100%. Carissa, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm like trying to get enough information so I could make choices to set things up from scratch. And I'm not like really understanding all, like, so the idea that the Obvio dashboard is like a membership site, that was really helpful for how I'm thinking to try to understand things. But I'm having trouble understanding, like, I guess I was thinking marketplace with its native communication. Like, why would you use the native communication in marketplace, but you were just explaining how to use communication for the magic links through a CRM, an external CRM? Like, why? How do you know what piece of your system to use for what thing?
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
So I would say to you that best practices, generally speaking, are to send the communication about your event or for your event through the communication channel that you use most of the time to communicate with your audience. So we always send out our emails from Keep. That's our primary. When I send a marketing email, or if I send a content email, or any kind of communication with our list or with our clients, it goes through Keep. Email inboxes are this kind of like black hole of I don't really fully understand it. But some of the things that I have been told from people who are way smarter than I am on this topic is that best practices is to send from the same source all the time, because they have little things that you don't see, that if I send you an email from Keep and you open it, now when I send you emails from Keep in the future, it'll continue to come into your inbox. But if all of a sudden I send you I switch providers and I send you an email from HubSpot, it looks different. Even though it's still coming from my email address, even though it's still coming from me to your email service provider, whether it's Google or Outlook or whoever, it looks different. And as a result, it has a higher probability of being caught in a promotions folder, a spam folder, a social media folder, whatever, something that is not where you want it, right? That isn't the inbox. So generally speaking, the advice that I've been given as I've grown up in this industry is be consistent in where you send your emails from. Okay. So if you normally send your emails from Keep, that's where you should do it from. Now, you may then be saying, okay, so why is there a comms engine inside of Obvio? Why did you bother to build that? And the reason we bothered to build it is because we know that there are some people who are using our platform who don't have a CRM, and they just want a very simple way to post on social media, hey, I'm doing an event, and having a link that goes to their marketplace page where people can sign up. And then once they sign up, being able to send out an email that says, congratulations, you're registered for the event. And then when the time for the event comes, be able to email those people, hey, the event is happening today, come show up. So we have a fully self-contained system within Obvio, and it's awesome. And with that being said, if what you're setting, if your event is not the only thing that you're doing in your business, and you're actually starting a business online, you want a place to house your contacts, your list, right? You'll hear this from many, many, many people out there. I'm not the only person who's going to say what I'm about to say, but the list is the most valuable thing that you have in your business, right? And as you grow your list, and as you communicate with your list, and as you nurture your list, I've heard people say multiple times, take everything else away from me. Take away my products, take away my websites, take away all that stuff. Leave me my list. And within 6 months, I'll have it all back, right? Because the list is the piece that's the most important. So you are able to do some of these things through Obvio, but we designed Obvio to really be self-contained for people who wanted it, but also be flexible enough to be able to communicate and work with individual CRMs like Keep, like MailChimp, like ActiveCampaign, like Entreport, like ConvertKit, or soon to be Kit, I think. All of those other, or Go High Level, all of those other platforms. And we also early on built a native integration with Zapier, so that any platforms that we don't connect to, you can connect to through Zapier. So, we did that because we know not everybody has a full system or a full business online. They may just want to host an event and nothing else, and that's fine. So, I don't know if that answers the question. The reality is I have subscriptions within our company to probably 5 or 6 different services, all of which have the capability to send email. I only send email from Keep.
Is there something similar with text message sending, or does that matter?
That matters a little less. Text messaging is becoming more challenging to send out text messages. I can't remember what the acronym is, but there's a new thing in the United States called like A2P authentication or something like that, where you have to register your text message phone number as a, if you're not using a service, like if you're using Twilio or something like that. So text messaging is a little bit easier than email because generally speaking, there aren't, your phone doesn't have spam checkers in the messages application, right? So that's a little bit less important.
Thank you.
Welcome. And the other thing I would say, Carissa, is I know you're thinking about platforms right now. They're all good. There's no real wrong decision, in my opinion, right? This is a decision that you can change in the future. It's not the end of the world if you're not happy. Changing platforms is not fun. It's not easy, but we have clients who have very, very, very successful businesses that I am envious of, both in size and in simplicity, and in some cases in complexity. And I have clients who have successful businesses on ConvertKit, on Entreport, on ActiveCampaign, on HubSpot, on Keep, Salesforce, Zoho. I'm trying to remember. There's another one out there that there's like 3 or 4 others that we've had clients have successful businesses on. I had a client who had ClickFunnels. One Shopping Cart was mentioned earlier today. That platform has been around forever. We used to have. I haven't seen it recently, but a lot of our clients used to use One Shopping Cart exclusively. So there's no wrong decision. Just make a decision and go with it. And for sure, if you're using one of the ones that we integrate with, you can't go wrong. And there's some other ones out there that are also awesome. And we have clients who have full businesses on Kajabi. So there you go. Just pick one, go for it. Yep, you're welcome. All right, Irina, and then Kat.
Mine is super quick. I'm just supporting what you were saying. So the best practice would be when we have Obvio and we invite people or communicate for the event, to send everything from ActiveCampaign, in my case, from ActiveCampaign, all of that. But because I don't have SMS in my ActiveCampaign, I could use SMS from Obvio, and it's fine because it's just the texting.
You got it. Channel. That's why it's there. 100%. Yep. Kat, go ahead.
Just a quick equipment query. Does an M3 chip mean that the M1 came first, then the 2, and then the 3? So the 3 would be the most recent?
Yes. And the higher number is more recent.
I'm curious I was asking Becky about good place to get inexpensive MacBooks, and she said Facebook Marketplace. So I was looking, and there's several M3s that are around $500 ish. Do you think that would be trustworthy?
I have no idea. What I will tell you is that there are different flavors of the chips, right? Mm-hmm. So Apple post Steve Jobs is a very different company than it was when he was around. And there's like 17 different versions of an iPhone, which he probably never would have let happen, right? And they have, I think, 4 different versions of their chips. They have the M. I'm going to use the M2 as the example because I don't think all of these chips exist on the M3 yet. But they have the M2, the M2 Pro, the M2 Max, and the M2 Ultra. I think those are the 4 versions of the chip that they have.
And each is subsequently more empowered. The Ultra is
exactly. The Ultra is I think the highest end. I feel like I heard like there was another one, but I think the highest end is an Ultra that you can get right now. But here's the thing. They just released an iPad that has an M4 chip in it, right? But I'll tell you that my M1 Max is probably more powerful than the M4 chip that is in the iPad, or than the M3 chip that is just a standard M3, right? So this is not buying a computer. Buying a Mac used to be easy. It's now almost, it's not quite as bad as buying a PC, but you know, it's definitely a little bit more complicated. And you know, I think generally speaking, one version back, but have it be a higher level chip is better than having it be most recent version, but lower level chip, right? So remember M3, M3 Pro, M3 Max, M3 Ultra. And again, I don't think they have the Ultra. They may not even have the M3. I think they do have the M3 Max. But those are expensive, right? So I think it just depends. And in terms of Facebook Marketplace, you know, I've bought things on Craigslist in the past. I've not bought anything on Facebook Marketplace, but you're buying from an individual. So is it trustworthy? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. I've bought things from not trustworthy people on Amazon because there are resellers on Amazon. So every platform has its risks.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is if you are going to purchase something on Facebook Marketplace, however you pay for it, I would make sure that it is a protected payment method, like your credit card. Something that if you don't get what you paid for, you can dispute the charge. I think that may not be the worst of ideas.
Does anybody ever dispute the charge for trainings? Has that ever happened to you for TV?
We don't get a lot of disputes, but yeah. I've had I think of the like 7,000 or so people who have gone through TVE, or 7,000 tickets that we've sold through TVE anyway, 4 or 5 disputes, like not a lot, like really not a lot. And generally speaking, a dispute usually comes from somebody who, you know, who didn't show up to the event and who asks for a refund after the fact, having never shown up to the event. And then they're like, but you said it was fully guaranteed. And we're like, yeah, we said it was fully guaranteed, but you have to show up. And we said that in the guarantee. You know, so usually it's a simple response to the chargeback request, which is what it's called from my perspective. Like when I get it, it's called a chargeback. And you know, we send them the sales page that has the guarantee on it. We send them the receipt with all, or the payment tracking that is built into our e-commerce platform. And I think I've lost one of the disputes. It's not something that I worry terribly much about, because we're talking like a $97 dispute. If it takes me more than 10 minutes to find the paperwork for the dispute, I don't contest it. I leave it alone, because I'm like, my time isn't worth that. So, but yeah, I mean, some people do. Very few, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Heather, any last questions, or are we wrapped for the day?
I think we're wrapped for the day.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everybody, great to have you all on here. Thanks for asking awesome questions. Muddy, thanks for your contributions as always. Irina, thanks for your contributions. Heather, you're awesome. And if you have any questions between now and next week, remember, there's a few ways that you can approach those questions. Number one, during the day, you can text us using the little text application. It's not a text message, I'm sorry. You can chat with us inside the application, inside Obvio. In that case, you'll talk with either Heather or James between about 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. You can email us by emailing help@obv.io and let us know what your question is. You can also post your questions in the Facebook group. All three of those, I would say if you have an urgent question after hours, the Facebook group is a great place to post your question. Myself, Grant, and several others, including Muddy and James and several other people. Honestly, we probably all see those things and oftentimes we'll respond over the weekend. So if you have any questions, those are a great way to get those questions answered. You can also, if it's not pressing and you're like, I have a question, but I don't want to forget it. So, but I'm going to attend next week's call. You can always post it in the Ask a Question button in between calls. You don't have to wait for the call itself to submit your question. And even if you're not on the call, we will 100% answer your questions on the call. So you can always watch the recording via YouTube. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you guys. I hope you have an amazing week and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye for now.